Welcome to episode 25 of the radio podcast. Today we interview Trevor Morten. You know Trevor Morten?
Yeah.
You do? He's a very interesting character, really great actor, and really nice guy. He's got an interesting life story and also plays a number of different instruments, which we all talk about. So we kind of nerd out about Nintendo games and all his interests as well. Here we have Raksha from the Student Council doing her first podcast intro. Hi, Raksha.
Hi.
So are you nervous a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, don't worry about it. What's going on for this last few weeks of Student Council and for school?
So on June 14th from 3 to 5 on the hill in the back field, there will be a slip and slide, as well as there will be a baking flour fight taking place at the basketball court. There will also be concession stands. Make sure you bring towels. No jeans or bathing suits allowed. Shirts must be worn at all times. And possibly on the last week of June, there will be a spirit week.
That's cool. I've been looking forward to the slip and slide for some time. Did we do one last year?
Yes, we did.
Ah, okay. I don't remember doing one. Maybe I wasn't there. Oh, no, I was there. But that's something we always look forward to. That should be fun. So are you looking forward to the end of the year?
Yeah, for sure.
And what are you looking forward to this summer?
Summer school. Yay.
Yay, summer school. All right. So listen in for Trevor Morten. I'm sure you'll listen to the podcast, right?
Yep.
It's going to be a good one. Okay. High five.
Yeah. Break it down.
Awesome. That's right. You're a bass player. When are you going to bring that thing?
I don't know.
Can you
I
still
think
play
my
it?
brother's got it right now.
Your brother has
At his
okay.
elementary school.
How good you get at it?
Not very good. I wasn't very good.
Probably better than me. I have a bass, but I don't.
You play
use
bass?
it. No, not really.
Why do you have a bass then?
Well, I tried to for a short while.
Okay.
I also have 2 guitars, but I also don't play that.
Why do you have 2 guitars?
One of them is an acoustic with Bartman stickers on it that was $10 at a garage sale.
Bartman.
And
Okay.
the other one is like an electric that I actually used for some time.
I want an
Are
electric.
you even old enough to know who Bartman is?
Yes?
Okay.
Simpsons are still
Yeah,
still
The
on.
Simpsons is...
Yeah, but they haven't done Bartman in a long... Like, when The Simpsons was pitched to Fox, it was originally meant to be a family sitcom about a rebellious young man. But by season 3, Matt Groening and the rest of the writing team had caught on to the fact that the rebellious boy was no longer the keys to the episodes. It was way more popular and way funnier to write plot lines about the dumb dad. And all of a sudden Homer rose to prominence. And if you watch the first 3 seasons, you notice that Homer's not as heavily prominent more prominent in the plot lines as he is after season 3, and then it becomes way more about Homer's stupidity and clumsiness that make the episodes great, and the rebellious young Bart is less of a plot feature.
Do you know what show The Simpsons used to be on?
The Tracy Ullman Show.
Tracy Ullman Show.
Of course.
I remember that show.
Oh yeah, she's great. What did she just do recently? She provided voice talent in a cartoon of some kind. I can't remember off the top of my head, but Tracy Ullman, she's still around. Mm-hmm. Still does stuff. But yeah, Tracy Ullman Show. Back in the 80s.
Do you remember Tracy Ullman?
No.
No, of course not.
No. I'm a 2000s kid.
2000s
I was
kid.
born in
Knots.
2000.
You were born in the knots.
Yeah. I like using the word not. Like Beth's height. I say 5 foot not. Any opportunity I can get.
Why not?
Why not?
Oh, okay. I say ought.
Ought?
Like they used to at the turn of the 20th century. I was born in ought 5. You know, like
Ought. That's what it was.
yeah, ought 5.
Well, that's right. Zero's ought, not
Yeah,
not.
yeah, it's ought.
It's ought. Whatever.
But I like the calling millennials not. That's funny. They're the nots. I'm technically a millennial, but I disagree. I still feel like I'm Gen X.
It's just pigeonholing yourself.
Millennials are supposed to be the ones that came of age at the turn of the millennium, right? So it would be like,
If you look it up online, they say that Gen X stopped in 84, and that's when you became a millennial, and I'm born in 86.
76 for me.
You're a 76er? Mm-hmm. That's right, we're 10 years apart. Mm-hmm. Should we formalize this?
What does that mean?
We're sitting here with Trevor Morten, the Delview radio podcast. Thank you for listening.
That's a bit too formal.
Sup?
What's up, Trev?
Sup, Trev? I call him Trevor.
Trevor.
Yeah.
you're the only one.
Trevor
Actually, no,
Martin.
it started to spread. It started to spread.
I don't know why I do that.
Trevor Morten.
Trevor Morten. I don't know why I do that. I give nicknames to some of my students. There are some students I only call by last name, and then I call Trevor. I call him Trevor.
So we're talking about instruments.
Yeah.
Sax.
Yes.
2 guitars. A bass.
I own an alto and tenor saxophone. I'm borrowing the school's baritone when I play that.
You have 3 saxophones?
Well, I only own 2 of them.
Yeah, okay.
And, wait for this, the 2 of them are named, are they not?
Yes, the alto is named Emily, and the tenor is named Antonio, or Tony for short.
And why one male, one female? Any significance? Are those people you know? Or
No, it's not related to people I know. I just feel like my tenor Tony is tenor Tony is also the alliteration there. But I just felt like Tony was fit that saxophone better, and Emily fit my alto better.
So you have quite a collection of instruments at home.
I suppose.
He also has a voice that he lends to our show choir.
Yeah, I do.
It's a deep voice.
Yeah. I'm technically a bass voice, which I wouldn't really think just hearing my speaking voice I think is fairly high, but I guess singing it goes lower. I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard you sing.
Yes.
Because I've dropped by. What were you guys doing? Hamilton?
We're trying to get some Hamilton material ready for Fine Arts Night.
Oh yeah, when is that?
June 7th.
June 7th.
It's coming up.
It's coming up pretty
quick. Is
quick.
it usually that late? You've had 2 already, right?
No, we only do 2 a year.
Oh, okay.
1 each semester. So yeah, it's our big closure
End of
the
year.
year.
That's good.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Good.
So for all of you sitting at home listening, if you're listening to this before June 7th, make sure you come out to the Fine Arts Night.
So, your instruments, did you ever take lessons for any of them?
I took voice lessons briefly around grade 9, I believe. Mm-hmm. But other than that,
You're self-taught.
I'm self-taught, really, videos on the internet, things like that. Justin Guitar is good for learning guitar if anyone at home wants to join in on that.
Mm-hmm. What about the sax? How did the saxophones start?
In grade 7, there was mandatory band.
Band.
And I just kind of picked an instrument that I thought was cool. I was like, maybe I want to do trumpet, maybe I want to do sax. I went for sax. I didn't know what an alto or a tenor or what. I didn't know any of that stuff. Sax is cool, and I tried it out, and it kind of went from there. In grade 8, I decided, hey, maybe I should join the band again, and I've been there since. So I've been playing sax for, I guess, 6 years now.
Mm-hmm. You know who else plays saxophone?
Who?
Lisa Simpson.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry, I just thought I'd go full circle with the Simpsons there.
Hers is a tenor sax, isn't it?
I think she's a Barry.
No, it's a tenor. Berries swirl in the neck?
It depends on which episode you're watching. I'm pretty sure that
does it swirl sometimes?
I'm pretty sure that there are some episodes where it swirls.
Okay, we're going to have to look that up.
Because an alto's neck just is kind of like a straight curve.
Right.
A tenor's goes up and then back down, and then a berry will swirl around.
Have you tried a soprano ever?
I have never actually touched a soprano sax. Or sopranino, or bass, or contrabass, or all these other funky things. That does indeed look like a Barry sax there. All
Really?
right.
Let's see. Oh, yeah.
But then in some other ones, it looks more like a tenor, doesn't it? Like, like in the intro, I think it looks more like a tenor than that.
And Ralph Wiggum with a flute up his nose will play Stars and Stripes forever. Hopefully not forever.
So you picked the coolest. Did you play any other instruments before that?
No,
That was your first instrument?
Yeah, that was.
Oh, so
that
they
was
never had-
basically my first time ever doing anything musical.
They never had recorder or ocarina or anything like
Not
that?
when
Oh,
I
okay.
was doing school. When my brother, who was 3.5 years older, so I think 4 years above me in the schooling grades, he did recorder when he was in like grade 5 or something like that. But my class didn't. I guess I don't really know what happened there. But
Yeah.
sax was my first opportunity to join a music related thing. And for the first few weeks, I was actually playing with the mouthpiece upside down. So
Yeah.
the reed was vibrating against my top lip. Which
Okay.
now I've tried it, and I can sort of make a sound, but it really
can.
tickles.
Yeah.
It's not a pleasant experience at all.
No. Plus, you need your tongue there.
Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking.
Well,
Yeah.
they actually, in music, when you're playing a wind instrument and you need to stop the air from flowing, they
Right.
call it tonguing.
Tonguing.
I don't imagine that tonguing would be particularly easy with the reed on top.
Yeah, no, I
No.
can't imagine tonguing with the reed on top.
That'd be difficult.
I mean, you could stop your airflow, but you can't do much. It's by
It would have to
by
be
means
all
of
diaphragm
articulation.
or glottal stops.
Have you ever played a sax?
Yeah, I played saxophone in grade 6.
Oh, really?
Alto.
Okay.
Hated it.
Why?
True story. True story. This is going to sound very weird.
He's not making this up.
I'm not making this up. The amount of saliva that gets collected in a wind instrument disgusts me.
Oh,
Well,
it's
you gotta
huge.
swab it out after.
That's gross. Like knowing that I'm cleaning my instrument to get all of the condensation and moisture from my own body, and like sucking on a little piece of wood before playing my saxophone was like. So when I was picking a new instrument, I wanted something that I didn't blow into. And that's why I started playing the electric bass.
Well, at least it wasn't like a brass instrument where you have to open a valve and
Well, yeah,
shoot
I've
your
got my-
condensation out on the floor.
Well, you do
That
with
was
Barry sax
the-
as well.
You
A
do
Barry
for Barry
sax
sax,
has one.
yeah, that's
Okay.
true.
Barry sax is a spit
I didn't
valve.
know that, but I have
it's
for
disgusting.
sure have one on my trumpet, and that was the best thing. Like spitting it all over the gym floor, and it would disgust everyone in the
Oh
band.
yeah, I think saliva is disgusting.
Yeah, but at least you could clear it.
Oh yeah.
So in an alto sax, I guess you just have
Clean
to
it.
swab it out
Yeah.
with a
Yeah,
that
well, because
brush thing.
Cloth.
the buildup isn't nearly as bad
Is
because
it?
like with like a trumpet, for example, the tube's quite small and it kind of gets stuck in the curves and stuff. But a sax is just it's pretty much straight down and then
Right.
back up.
You
So
just
there's
pour it out at the end.
yeah,
or you
so-
drink it.
Sometimes like you'll get like a build up in your mouthpiece and stuff, and I'll sometimes take off my mouthpiece or take off my neck and like get some of that spit out.
I had a friend in high school that we went all through band classes together, and he played the trumpet. And in our school, there was no common lunch hour, so there was 5 blocks in a day, and you would get 1 block off as your off block, and that would be when you would take lunch. But depending on
weird.
it was kind of weird, but I liked it. But depending on how you wanted to build your schedule and what classes were available, you could do it so that you had a block as your off block, and then you come to school for B, C, D, E, and go straight through. But you could sleep in, or you could come for 4 classes, go A, B, C, D, and then go home early. So you could build it like that. Or if you were like me and you wanted to have a lunch, you would take C block and say, okay, I'm going to go A, B, have C block lunch, and then D, E after. Anyways, because we had this schedule and there was no common lunch at my school, a lot of students became opportunistic feeders. And my friend Kevin, who I'm sure is not going to listen to this, would always eat in band class.
That's gross.
He would eat a PB&J sandwich while playing his trumpet.
Oh,
Kevin,
That's so
if you're
gross.
listening, what? And the thing is, too, is I don't think he's played his trumpet much since high school. I can only imagine what's living in his trumpet case right now.
Well, you get the brush and you clean it out. I used to clean it out in the bathtub once in a while,
Yeah.
right, with warm water. Just Because it's gross.
Yeah, my brother who...
Even
also,
if you're not eating,
yeah,
it's gross.
My brother who also plays the sax and actually went to Cap College for saxophone would, at the end of every school year, get his saxophones. He has two. He has an alto and a bari.
Yeah.
He would get them professionally serviced.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my alto's in the shop right now. I'm getting some pads changed and everything cleaned up and all that.
Yeah, it's good to do once in a while.
Yeah, I haven't taken her into the shop in probably 5 years. She's quite overdue for a repad and a general cleanup and all that.
She'll thank you for it.
Yeah, and the thing with a sax is you can't like put it in the bathtub to clean it out because it's got the leather pads on there, and with a trumpet it's like all metal.
Right.
But with the sax you've got corks and you've got leather pads and all that other stuff that you don't really want getting wet. So unless you take off all the keys and whatnot, you can't exactly stick it in the bathtub
parts.
and give it a scrub down.
Yeah.
Now, the saxophone belongs to the woodwind family.
Yes.
As well as flutes, clarinets, oboes, and bassoons. And if I'm not mistaken on my history of musical instruments, the reason why they're called woodwinds is not that they were originally made out of wood, but they're called woodwinds because of the reed.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
flutes
flutes don't have a reed.
Flutes don't have a reed.
But I believe they used to, and like some other members of the flute family do have reeds.
Oh, interesting.
I'm not exactly 100% sure on that, but if you look at a recorder, that's also considered a woodwind. It's in that same family.
Plus, there are some flutes that are made out of wood.
Yeah, you can get a wooden flute. I despise the recorder.
Really?
Yeah, I absolutely do.
The sound?
The sound, to me, is abhorrent. My brother, who teaches elementary music, teaches the recorder, and you go to Long and McQuaid, and for $30 you can get a class set of plastic recorders that are never properly tuned to each other, and you can't take them apart and retune them. And my brother's argument is, well, they're cheap. I'm like, well, yes, and they sound cheap. I mean, you can spend money on a good recorder, and I guess that's fine, or like a penny whistle or something.
And I have heard good recorder players, but I think the thing with recorders is it's just too easy to play them badly.
Yes.
And like you don't really... Nobody ever continues with recorder until they're good.
Yeah.
So you only ever hear the really bad recorder players.
Yeah, and with recorders you can't overblow. Like you have to really control how much air you put into it.
Otherwise, you just scream.
Right.
So I've told my brother, I said, ukuleles can't be that expensive. Cut your recorder curriculum.
$50.
Yeah, I know. We need to get some rich donors to
Not $5.
Cut the recorder program and get ukes.
Ocarinas.
Ocarinas are fun.
Orff instruments,
Yeah. Or Orff. My brother took a course on Orff. Yeah. Teaches xylophone, a lot of Orff.
Cool. So you like playing jazz?
Yeah. I actually go to a jazz combo class on Tuesdays.
What?
Tuesday
Where's
evenings
that?
in South Delta at Delta Community Music School.
Oh, okay.
So basically what it is, it's led by a trombonist named Brad Muirhead. Who's been, like a professional jazz player for a long time. He's a jazz trombonist. He's accomplished or whatever.
Yeah.
And he leads these smaller groups of players in various instruments like piano, bass, guitar, voice even. And we'll, learn some music theory. We'll play some tunes, work on improvisation, the structure of chords, all that sort of stuff.
That's really cool. So you can improvise.
Oh, yeah.
That's great.
The concert I did at Live at Lunch recently, that was entirely improvised.
That's awesome.
I learned what the chords were beforehand, so I knew,
right.
what kind of what notes would be a good place to land on, but everything in between is just kind of whatever I felt like,
Good for you.
Yeah, most solos I do are improvised.
Good.
And can you tell us a little bit about that experience performing with Jacob at Live at Lunch? Or how that came to be that you would play for that song?
Well, Jacob came up to me one day with a project for his biology class, and he was like, I need to sing a song about the heart, and I want to have a sax solo. Can you do it? And I was like, yeah, all right. And then I didn't hear anything about that for a while. So then a couple days before he was about to present this song to his bio class, he told me, the chord progression. We actually figured out how the structure of the song when I'm going to solo. We decided it was going to be on the end after he had finished his lyrics about the heart, and we would just end off with a sax solo and, look to each other for the cues on when to quiet down or get louder or when to stop and all that. So he sings this song about the heart. I burst into the bio class with my saxophone. Very few people knew it was coming. I think the teacher knew and maybe a few students, but it was mostly a surprise. I saw quite a few people jump back in their seats when I came in with my sunglasses and my saxophone. And we did a little solo there, and it was pretty good. I think it went over fairly well, and I stuck around and watched the other performances that the class was doing, because they were doing a poetry or song or that sort of thing about the heart.
Yeah, I heard it from my class. I knew it was you.
Oh yeah, I wasn't exactly quiet.
Sax?
I mean,
yeah.
No, saxophone is everything but subtle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can play quiet on sax, but it's very easy to play loud.
Mm-hmm. And loud is fun.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And then a few days after that, Live at Lunch was going on, and someone dropped out last minute. I don't know who dropped out, but we found out that there was now a spot for a new act, and Mr. Bonikowski was going around seeing if anyone could do anything else. He went up to Jacob, do you have another song you want to do? Because Jacob was already performing something else at Live at Lunch. He was like, do you have another song? And Jacob was like, oh yeah, me and Trevor can do a thing. And I was like, yeah, okay.
And that was based on another song, right? An actual song.
But I don't remember what the song is.
And Jacob couldn't remember the lyrics, so he sang the biology song instead.
Yeah, at Live at Lunch, he couldn't remember the original lyrics, and he just sang about the heart, and...
Well, might as well.
Yeah, because he did know those lyrics. And,
yeah.
We all learned something.
We all learned.
In addition to being on stage as a musician, you also spend quite a bit of time on stage doing other things.
Yes.
Tell us about your stage experience.
All right, so probably the first time I really went on stage was in grade 8. I auditioned for The Man Who Came to Dinner. I got a small role, 7 lines.
He still remembers how many lines he had. That's because actors count lines.
Well, that's the only role where I remember the amount of lines.
Oh, okay, that's good.
7 lines. My name was Sandy. And, the year after that, I was like, yeah, that was pretty fun. Let's try it again. And I've been in every, spring play since.
Well, you were a puppeteer.
Yes, I was in my grade 9 year. I auditioned for Little Shop of Horrors, and I got the role of puppeteer for Audrey 2. Along with a small voice role that was like a radio announcer, which was off stage.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was 30 seconds maybe of talking.
Right.
But it was mostly a unseen, unheard role in the puppet or in a box with my hand sticking up to reach a puppet.
So you played the little puppet and the big puppet.
So in that show there were 4 puppets.
There were 4 puppets, okay.
And I played 3 of them. So the very smallest one was placed on a table. It was carried in and placed on a table, and that table had a hole cut through it. And I had to stick my hand up into the bottom of the puppet and use it that way. And for the whole show before that, I was just waiting in the box, in the table, because the table was closed on all sides. So it was a wooden box, essentially.
Oh my gosh.
With a hole in the top, and I was waiting in there for him to put the thing down. I did my puppeteering when...
So you were in the box the entire time?
I was in the box from the beginning of the show until he put it down. So that was, for anyone who's familiar with the show at all, in the box from the beginning until Grow For Me.
Oh.
Which is the song where he first feeds me blood. Spoiler alert. First feeds Audrey 2 the blood and he starts to grow. After that, there's the second puppet, which I did not control, because it was entirely handheld. So
it was carried around, and whoever was holding it was controlling.
Agape, who played our Seymour, had a jacket with a fake arm, and his real arm went up into the puppet.
Oh, okay.
And there was a fake stuffed arm that wrapped around it to look like he was holding it.
And the large Audrey, how did you operate that?
So there were 2 more that were larger than that handheld one.
Okay.
There was one that was sitting on a pot and would be upright when not in use, and then I would bring it down to face forward and open up the jaw and stuff while talking. So that one I was sitting on the pot, and it was basically just on my lap around me. And I had to have my arms up in the air for like, I don't know how long. Way too long, because if I didn't, it would just open itself.
Oh, okay. So your arms were like the top part of the mouth?
And then were you essentially doing sit-ups?
I had one arm in each jaw, like the one in the top jaw, one in the bottom jaw.
Okay.
So I held it with like my palms facing each other, but like closed fists on the little handle. And then when I would bring it down, I would flip my bottom arm around, because that was just easier for me to control it that way. And that way I could get a lot of motion side to side, tilting, looking back and forth, and I could move the mouth a lot faster that way. That one was the hottest of all and the least comfortable, because I had to stay motionless on stage in that plant for a very long time, and there's not a lot of air circulation. Actually, I actually had one of those little fan/spray bottle combo things.
Yeah.
And I would just put it down on the pot, like beside me and behind me. And like when I got too hot, I would just keep one hand up.
He was totally inside.
Yeah, I was inside the plant, and my legs were covered in like a green pants with like vines on the end, which kind of like disguised my legs as vines. And there were other vines around that were not my legs; they were just stuffed.
Yeah.
So like as long as I kept one arm up, holding it shut, it would stay shut.
Hilarious.
So I could kind of like spritz myself a little bit, put it down, and like.
Did you ever get cramps or?
Oh yeah, it was very uncomfortable.
Oh
I was very buff by the end of that show, though.
Oh, yeah?
I don't think I've ever been in that good of a shape, because I was basically lifting weights all rehearsal. The fourth puppet was the biggest one. It stayed laying down, and the way I controlled it was actually through a hole in the back of the stage, which it would just fit through, and there were wooden handles that stuck out. And I would push down on the wooden handles to lift the upper jaw.
Okay.
So that one I had a lot less freedom moving it around. I couldn't really look side to side nearly as well. It was weighed down with some sandbags, so it didn't just go flying if I tried to move it. And that one, people could actually crawl inside. So I would open the mouth, people would go past. There was a little flap of fabric that would like lift up, and they would go inside.
It could eat people.
Yeah, I would move aside, let them go backstage, because it led directly to backstage. But I had to push down on handles, almost like a wheelbarrow, to lift the jaw.
And these were rented puppets, yes?
Yes.
Rented
I'm not
or
really
borrowed,
sure where we got them from,
Yeah.
but another school did it beforehand, and we gave it to another school after.
Gotcha.
It just gets passed on.
Yeah.
And recently Earl Marriott did a production of Little Shop of Horrors with the same set, the same puppets.
Wow. Because I do know that when you license Little Shop of Horrors through Musical Theatre International, you have the option to rent their puppets.
Oh, okay.
Same with if you do Avenue Q, you can rent their puppets for Avenue Q. It's more expensive to rent the puppets, but you have the puppets. Like, they build these things for that purpose.
Yeah, I don't think ours were rented from, like, the actual people that did it, because we had to do some edits on them, repaint some things. I actually broke the jaw at one point, and it was a little loose. We had to
fix it.
We had to get that repaired, yeah.
Wow. But so you did a play in grade 8.
Yes.
That's a big deal. Grade 8s don't always get cast in a school play, do they?
Yeah, no, it was, I was pretty lucky to get a role, honestly, especially one as big as I got, considering I had never been on stage, never acted, anything like that before.
And then in grade 9, you didn't sign up for drama.
I did do drama class in grade 9.
Okay.
But I did not in grade 10 or 11.
No, I know that.
Yeah, because you were teaching
I know that. But you still auditioned for the play.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about this. And I'm not trying to grill you, but I'm just curious. If you decided not to take drama as a class, was it that you still enjoyed theater, or what made you come out and audition?
Oh, yeah, for sure I really enjoyed theater. Like, in grade 8, I, kind of tried it out for the first time, thought it was pretty cool. But then I think in my grade 9 year is when I really realized how great the theater is, and that's when I really realized, like, the magic of it and the camaraderie you can build and all sorts of fun stuff. That was with Mr. Laborde, who would have obscenely long rehearsals, So once it was getting closer to the show, we were always there until like 10 o'clock at night. So it was a lot of time being spent with your cast members, with crew members, all that stuff. So you really got to know people quite well. And I think that was one of the things that kept bringing me back to the theater for the years after that, grade 10, 11, 12. In grade 12, I actually did. I'm taking a drama class again. I'm doing that right now.
2, because you peer tutored one.
Oh, yes, I did peer tutor at Drama 9 as well. But yeah, I think in grade 9 is when I really started to realize that the theater is really something magical.
And in grade 10, you got cast in a really good part.
Yes.
In grade 11, you got cast in a really good part. And in grade 12, you had the part. And it was very interesting for me because I don't typically believe in favoritism or casting the same people over and over again. And it got me thinking is that I never set out to cast you in all of those lead roles, but those were roles that were well earned. So you know how many lines you had in The Man Who Came to Dinner. Do you want to take a guess at how many lines you had this year?
You told me before, I think, but I don't.
252.
Yeah, alright. So that's a pretty big jump.
Yeah.
It's a lot of memorization.
And let's go back in time just for a moment here to grade 11 Trevor.
Yes.
Just imagine that grade 11 Trevor is sitting in this room right now. What was grade 11 Trevor going to do after graduation?
Grade 11 Trevor was still a bit confused. I had a lot of different ideas. Up until grade 12, when I actually had decided, before I had a whole bunch of different things going through my mind. At one point, I wanted to be a locksmith. I did consider teaching for a while before, but then other things came in my life, out of my life. I was thinking maybe I should go into trades, maybe I should go into sciences. I was kind of all over the place.
You're quite good at science, yes?
I suppose. I usually get fairly high marks in my science courses, but I don't really do any science-related things outside of school. Aside from, I did a work experience placement teaching a science after-school club to children at Gibson. But that's pretty much the only science-related thing I've done outside of school. Eventually I decided I need to choose something. I need to start on a path, whatever it is. So that's a path of acting and theater and performing arts.
I didn't know this.
So grade 12 Trevor has decided that he is going to pursue theater and has been accepted to the Capilano University Acting for Stage and Screen program.
Good for you.
Correct.
And will be pursuing acting in September.
Yep. Excellent.
Yeah, so I hope to continue with my acting and with my performing of all sorts, music as well, all this sorts of stuff, and hopefully the end goal is to teach theater, just like Mr. Turpin sitting here next to me. But we'll see how it goes. I've heard that people never really end up in what they thought that they were going to end up doing. So that's my goal. That's what I'm working towards. Hopefully it works out.
Well, I think that fact is because you want to try to keep it open because things come up.
Yeah,
right? Things come up and you learn something new or you meet somebody and it's like, whoa, that's cool what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right?
And then things change and you can never really be prepared for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you want to be open to new adventures and different things too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Good for you. Yeah. We saw you. I brought my son to Spelling Bee. Something happened, I can't remember this year, that I couldn't see your performance, unfortunately. We had planned to.
Yeah, you were going to come close to
something
Mouth
came up.
Sick.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Because I always bring him to plays.
Yeah.
And so Spelling Bee was the last one we saw, which was phenomenal. And your character was hilarious.
It was a lot of fun and a lot of work. I've never really done something like that where because in Spelling Bee, for those of you who don't know, I put on quite a character. His name was
quirky.
William Barfay.
Yeah.
Who had many issues and had a unusual voice, which I had to talk and sing in. So that was Actually, it's pronounced Barfay, not Barfy. There's an accent aigu. So I had to, talk and sing in that voice, which was quite hard on my throat, actually. Over time, it took a toll on me. Yeah. Started losing my voice by the end of it, but it worked out in the end.
Everybody was losing their voice by the end of it.
Yeah, that's true. But that was my first time, with a part that big in a musical. Mm-hmm. In Little Shop of Horrors, I didn't have a singing part.
Yeah.
I also did High School Musical outside of school. That was with Classic Steps, which is a dance group.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I played the role of Chad in High School Musical, which is Troy's best friend. Uh-huh. What's the actor's name? Corbin Bleu.
Corbin Bleu.
Yeah. That role. I'll never forget my first line, and the first line in the whole show, not even my first line. The first line in the whole show. There was an opening number where we sang and danced and whatever, and then me and Troy walk on stage and I go, "Yo, doggy! Troy, my hoops boy!" And then Troy would respond, "Hey, Chad, dudes, Happy New Year!" It was an experience.
Great lines.
It's Pulitzer Prize winning.
Yeah.
High School Musical.
Troy, my hoops boy.
Wow. How do you put those words together?
So I feel like I did do a better job with Spelling Bee than I did for High School Musical. Because High School Musical was probably the first time I ever sang seriously. Mm-hmm. And that's also what started me on singing lessons and all that. Because I knew I couldn't sing very well and I wanted to get better. And I'm still working on it. I'm still trying to get better. I'm in show choir with Mr. Turpin. Mm-hmm. And, I'm getting better all the time, but I'm working on it. I'm getting there.
We all need to.
Yeah.
But yeah, that Barfay role, there's just so many. Just sometimes when you watch an actor, and there's just some actors where you just want to just watch whatever they do. And in that role, just all your little ticks and things that you did with your feet and all that kind of, there was a lot there to take in.
That role was definitely,
so it was very enjoyable.
Had a lot going on in that role. Mm-hmm. Actually, that role was quite different from the one I did this year, which was Frank Bigelow in DOA. Mm-hmm. Because with Barfay, he was a unusual character. He had a lot of idiosyncrasies and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But with Frank Bigelow, it was more of a average Joe type character, which I actually found a lot harder to do, strangely enough. You would think someone vastly different from yourself should be more difficult, but it's actually a lot easier to play a caricature rather than play someone real, you know what I mean?
Why do you think that is?
I think it might be because an average Joe like that would be too similar to myself that making that distinction and getting into that character is a little bit more difficult rather than when it's someone vastly different.
So were you trying to make a concerted effort not to be yourself in that role to try to make it different enough?
I was trying to make it not be myself, be a different person, be different enough from myself, but at the same time there wasn't really this glaring feature about him that made him different, with Barfay, or with some of my previous roles, like Denim in To Sir With Love. I was, a bad kid. I would comb my hair back and leather jacket and all that.
It feels like it was forever ago.
That does feel like forever ago.
It feels like it was so long. It was 2 years ago, really, when you think about it. 2 calendar years.
Yeah. So all the other characters I had played before Frank Bigelow were... there was something about them that could make them different, makes them stand out. Mm-hmm. But with Frank Bigelow, it was kind of just... I was playing a person who was going through these situations, and I found it difficult to get into that person rather than just getting into myself.
And what was...
If that makes any sense, I don't...
Yeah, that makes sense. What was your process in researching this role and changing yourself to become this person? What was the process like?
I had to learn about the time period and stuff, things that I didn't know. And I found a big part of getting into that character was my costume. Once, especially the shoes, that's a very important part to me. Mm-hmm. But the costume in general, once I get that on, I start feeling a little bit more like the character. Mm-hmm. And of course, getting off book, memorizing my lines is another awesome step. You know, once you get rid of that script in your hands, you can more fully embody the character rather than being stuck with your nose in a book or whatever.
I love hearing this.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's
hearing
interesting that you mentioned the costume because I've never taken drama before, but I'm very interested in it. Isn't there an exercise in drama where you use masks and then you put on different masks and you try to become
mask work? And I would love to do it here at Delview. The problem is getting the masks because they're expensive. But there's so much about embodying different shapes and embodying different forms. And when you work with a mask, and some people think it gets a little bit almost too close to like trance-like work. But when you embody a mask, you allow the mask to change you rather than you change the mask. And a lot of actors feel the same way about a costume. They allow the costume to inform the character. Well, I'm wearing different clothes now, and this is what this person would feel like because they would wear these clothes. Right? Lin-Manuel Miranda says that for him, his process doesn't start when he puts on his own costume. His process starts when he sees everybody else in their costumes. Because then the world becomes more real. Yeah.
Usually that happens around the same time anyways.
Yeah.
So that kind of all blends into one experience.
I've heard interviews with Gary Oldman, my favorite actor of all time. But he did that dreadlocked character from True Romance, which is like a white Rastafarian gangster. I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I haven't seen it.
Drexel was his name. But I think what he said was that he had to get all the dreadlocks on. And then from that point on, like even during an interview, he had that accent and he was like talking like this and moving his shoulders around. It was like that did something to him.
And getting into the way a character moves is another big part for me too. Like you were mentioning, he was moving his shoulders around.
Right. Just the weight and the feeling.
Yeah. And the way a character carries themselves is also like a big part of getting into a different person, because different people walk in different ways and, you know, different stride lengths, different postures.
Right.
Some people like lead more with their chest or whatever. Like if you take like a drama class, you'll hear all about this sort of stuff. But like, and that's another big part for me of getting into the character, getting into a person who isn't me. And the costume helps with that for me too, is getting the posture right and how they carry themselves, I guess you could say.
Now, are there particular actors that you've watched over time that you're especially fond of or you find interesting to study?
There's not really any particular actors I can think of off the top of my head, but you know, there's always the greats that you look at that are in all sorts of these movies, and you know, but there isn't really like I don't think I really have a specific role model movie actor or whatever.
What kind of movies do you like to watch?
Honestly, I don't watch that many movies or TV shows. I'm like really behind on my watching of film. There's even a lot of Disney movies, which everyone has seen. I haven't seen them.
So walk us through this. Let's go back to childhood Trevor. Whereas most kids would want to go home, kick off the backpack, and turn on the TV and watch stuff, or go to the movies and watch movies. How would you occupy your time?
Honestly, I'm not too sure. I did play a lot of video games with my brother. We had Game Boys. We had our GameCube.
GameCube.
Yeah, that's my era. That's you know, that's kind of what I grew up with, was the GameCube. There's lots of great games on there. I still have mine. It still works.
Yeah.
That's like the one Nintendo system that I did not own.
Really? It's still, to this day, my favorite controller is the GameCube
Yeah,
controller.
a lot of people say that.
That's the one with the joystick in the middle?
Yeah. No, that's N64.
It's
Really?
the purple one with like a gray stick and a yellow stick.
But the thing that I feel about GameCube that makes me really upset is that I'm a big fan of Mario, and I never have played Sunshine.
Oh, that is one of my all-time favorite games, Super Mario Sunshine.
Oh, okay.
It's me and my brother, both of us have spent a long time playing that game. I don't think either of us ever finished it.
I've never heard of Super Mario Sunshine.
It was...
I totally missed the whole GameCube.
Yeah, GameCube was like... GameCube came out at a very interesting time where I feel like a lot of Nintendo enthusiasts felt like they had grown out of it. And
Because it didn't do very well.
didn't do very well.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the Wii came out, and then the Wii actually had a lot of... it gained a lot of adult interest because of the physicality in actually playing it. And there were games that came out like Wii Fit, where you could actually do your workout with the Wii, and it garnered a lot of attention. And I think it was also right around that time that a bunch of adults decided, I'm not too old for this, and kind of put that social stigma aside and decided to once again embrace Nintendo. So a lot of consumers that had gone, original Nintendo, Super Nintendo, N64, then I'm too cool for Nintendo. I'm going to go play PlayStation, or I'm going to go play Xbox and play something really a lot more violent where I can kill zombies and things like that.
So GameCube probably came around the same time as the original Xbox?
Very much so, yeah.
Right.
And PlayStation 2.
I remember the Xbox being super popular.
Yeah, and that's when GameCube came out. And it was, at least from what I remember, GameCube was really looked down upon as like, that's a baby's toy. Like, that's what kids play. Kids play the GameCube, and I'm going to go and rock out to my Xbox and play Halo and destroy some things. But then when the Wii came out, it was a game changer. It was like, all of a sudden we can play fun games again on the Nintendo. And then, unfortunately... Nintendo followed up the Wii with the Wii U, which a lot of people thought was just... To go back to the Simpsons reference, do you remember that episode where Lisa starts making Malibu Stacy dolls and then decides that she doesn't like the image that it's presenting on women, and then they come out with Malibu Stacy. It's the same doll, but it has a new hat. And everyone had to buy this doll because it had a new hat. Well, I feel like that's what a lot of people thought about the Wii U. It was like...
Well, they felt that, they had the promise of being portable.
Yeah.
But then when you took that portable component away from your console, it wasn't really portable. Yeah.
I like the Wii U because it takes everything that you love about the Wii and puts it in high definition. Because the Wii was it was standard def, but the Wii U was high def. And it has backplay capability. You still have standard def on all your backplay, but... now the Switch is out, and people are going crazy for the Switch.
It's amazing.
Want one.
The
Mr.
Switch
has
is amazing.
One.
Yeah.
I want
You
one.
have one?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm jealous.
That's amazing. That's Christmas. Well, our last console was a Wii.
Okay.
So you skipped Wii U.
Yeah,
My
it's about
Wii
time.
actually broke.
Oh, yeah?
My GameCube still works.
You just chuck
but
it at the
I had
TV
a
by
Wii,
accident?
which just stopped working one day.
Oh, really?
And we replaced it with what's called a Wii Mini, which is
I remember when that came out.
which is mostly the same thing as a Wii, but it can't
Was
play
that the red
GameCube
one?
games. Mine is red. I don't know if they all
Oh,
are.
yeah.
But it
I
can't
remember
play
that.
GameCube games, and it can't connect to the internet. So it works to play Wii games. You want to play Wii Sports or whatever, it works. But the thing I would probably use it for most, playing GameCube games, it doesn't work for. So I had to pull out my old GameCube.
So the original Wii could play GameCube games?
Yes, and they have...
And you can plug in the controllers.
Yeah, they
too.
have 4 ports on the top. It's under like a little door,
I didn't know that.
and you can...
The round ports, right, for the controllers.
Can the Wii U also play GameCube games? Probably not.
I don't know. I've never had a Wii U.
You can virtual console, but and this is the thing that pisses me off, is that the Wii U has virtual console, so you can download games from older consoles, including original Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and N64, but they don't have GameCube, which is why I can't play Mario Sunshine.
You can get an emulator on your computer.
Not the same.
I've got a thing where I've got a GameCube controller port hooked up to my computer,
Not the same.
and I can play a GameCube game on my computer.
So you can use a controller for it.
Yeah,
They're poorly coded, Trevor. Poorly coded.
It's the same thing.
It's not the same. Anyways, I'm not sure if Mr. Kung will remember. Trevor probably won't. But a game that came out for the Super Nintendo that was particularly popular was called Super Mario All-Stars. And what this Super NES game did is it gave you original Mario Brothers, Mario Brothers 2, Mario Brothers 3, and a game called The Lost Levels, all on one cartridge. And The Lost Levels was, in fact, the original incarnation of Super Mario Brothers 2 in Japan. Rumor has it that they are going to release for the Nintendo Switch Super Mario All-Stars 2, which is going to include Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and the 2 Mario Galaxy games that you can buy for your Switch, which would be, again, a throwback to old Mario games on a new console. So if
that sounds pretty nice.
If that comes to fruition, I will buy the Switch and finally play Mario Sunshine because I really want to play, and the new Super Mario Odyssey for Switch. But
That's a great game.
yeah,
But Zelda, that's a great game. That's an amazing game.
when Mr. Kung got his Switch for Christmas,
Oh, Zelda.
he text messaged me over
Yes.
the Christmas break and told me about all of the things that you can do in Zelda, including cutting the grass.
Okay.
You take an axe or a sword, and it's amazing. You just chop grass.
I'm like, of all the cool battles and things that you can do in Zelda,
One or two things I like are cutting grass and the paraglider and just floating around.
Well, you can
That's
cut
great.
grass in most Zelda games, can't you?
but it doesn't look like you're cutting grass because it's all
Actually,
standard def.
that was my first Zelda game.
What?
Yeah.
No way.
I never played Zelda before, ever.
What?
Yeah, serious.
You were just talking about ocarinas when we were bashing the
Ocarina of
recorder,
Time? Yeah.
And Ocarina of Time is one of the greatest games ever made.
All of the big Legend of Zelda games I haven't really played. I've never played Ocarina of Time.
What?
I've never played Majora's Mask.
That's fine. You can skip that one. Ocarina of Time is like, it's right up there with like the original Zelda game for the NES console.
Yeah.
Like when you talk about Zelda canon, Ocarina of Time has to be at the top of people's lists.
That one I've heard strongly recommended by everyone, but I've never gotten the chance to play it. My first Zelda game that I ever played was Four Swords, where you control like 4 different colored links at once, and you can get them in different formations and stuff, or
Weird.
control them separately.
Never even heard of it.
I've never heard it mentioned anywhere else, but I still have the disc at home. It's for GameCube.
Oh.
You could also hook up like a Game Boy Advance into it if you had the proper
What?
If you had the proper cables or whatever. You could hook up a Game Boy Advance and like have 4 people playing as each link separately on their little screen.
So you use the
But
Advance as a controller?
But I didn't have the cable for that. I never was able to hook that up. Also, I didn't have enough friends to have 4 different people.
And this is what I have to say about Nintendo. We're going to glaze over the fact that Trevor had a sad childhood with no friends. And we're going to go right to what we love about Nintendo.
And all he did was play his GameCube.
Yeah. The thing about Nintendo and PlayStation and Xbox can have their graphics war all the live long day. It's all about better graphics, better processing chips, faster graphics, more space, better graphics. Nintendo is all about advancing gameplay and coming up with innovative ways of using the system. And I didn't know that you could do this Zelda Four Corners thing with the GameCube. I'm going to look into it. You know what? I might just have to buy a GameCube. But that sounds exactly like what the Wii U is. You hold essentially a DS in your hand and you play on the screen, and like it's foreshadowing. Gosh, I love Nintendo. I love Nintendo.
Yeah, Nintendo's a good company. I've never really played a Nintendo game that I didn't like. Like, they're all pretty decent.
Speaking of childhood, do you mind if we talk about your childhood for a moment? I'm not sure if Mr.
Shouldn't
Kung
he
knows
lie
this.
down on the couch first?
Yeah. I'm not sure if Mr. Kung knows this, but in relationship to what we would call the average childhood, I would say that Trevor's childhood experience was very unique. Not so unique that Trevor would be like, well, I don't know what another childhood is like, so I can't tell you if mine was unique. But Trevor, can you talk a little bit about your dad?
Yes, so my dad is deafblind. So he has no hearing at all, and his vision has been degrading over the years. At this point, if you shine a flashlight in his eyes, he may or may not be able to tell. Like, it's almost entirely gone now. He has no functional vision at this point. So he was born deaf, and he started going blind as a child.
And your uncle is as
And
well,
my
right?
uncle, so my dad's brother, is the same deal with him. He was born deaf, started going blind as a child. And they are both Paralympians. They're both medal-winning Paralympians.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so my dad did wrestling, judo, and race
Oh,
walking.
wow.
And my uncle did wrestling and judo only, I believe.
Race walking, is that speed walking?
Yeah, so that's...
Oh, okay.
It's like, racing but not running. Just
Right.
Yeah. Looks quite silly if you ever see someone do it.
I've seen it.
It's a pretty ridiculous
Roll,
sport.
heel, ball, toe.
I have seen
Roll, heel, ball, toe, yeah.
So yeah, they're
I've seen Turpin do it.
They're both Paralympians, and they've both led quite successful lives. Both of them have had children. My dad had me and my brother, and my uncle has had 3 kids.
And this is genetic, is it not?
Yes, it is genetic, because both of them do have like the same condition. They were both born deaf, started going blind. But me and my brother both have good vision, good hearing. Neither of us need glasses or anything like that. My uncle's 3 kids, all same thing. None of them even have glasses.
What about your grandparents?
So my nonna and nono, which would be my dad's mother and father, they don't really have any vision problems. My nonna now has, a hearing aid and glasses, but
But that's common for...
Yeah, that's due to her age, not due to any sort of genetic condition. And when before my mom had me and my brother, she was talking to like a geneticologist or whatever you want to call it. That's it, thank you. About like what are the chances that my children are going to have the same thing. And the genealogist said that it's very unlikely, because what caused it must have been like a very specific combination of genes. Mm-hmm. And because my nonna and my nono are both from northern Italy, they're from like fairly nearby towns, there's probably something in there that had that same sort of gene, and which was passed down to my dad and uncle. But unless my mother also had the same gene or combination of genes or whatever it is, unless she had that, there was essentially no chance that would be passed down to me and my brother.
Right.
And my mom has no history in Italy. She doesn't have any heritage there, so the chances of that were very low. And
so
we both turned out...
grandparents just happen to have the right combination.
Yeah, just an unlucky combination, I guess, yeah.
But like you said, both your dad and your uncle have led incredibly successful lives. And I think to the average person that has sight and the ability to hear, we would imagine a sightless, soundless existence to be very crippling. But people can live and live very successful lives under those circumstances.
Yeah, for sure.
What's that like? What's that like to witness that, or to have grown up in that environment?
Well, if you ask me, my dad does lead a fairly normal life.
Yeah.
I mean, he has an iPhone.
Right, you were showing... Trevor did a Genius Hour project in grade 9, and he was showing this video of his dad's iPhone with his... with all the adaptations, right? Mm-hmm. And like
he has
comes out in Braille.
He has a little Braille keyboard thing that hooks up via Bluetooth to his iPhone. And with the iPhone's built-in like screen reader software, which is normally designed to read it out loud to you what's on your screen for visually impaired people, but it puts it into his Braille keyboard.
Right, all these dots pop up.
Yeah, the dots pop up and he can read it that way. And he has a similar thing for his computer. Because, he does his email, surfs the web, and whatnot. He has a similar thing hooked up to his computer where the dots will pop up and pop down, and you can scroll along that and things like that.
It's pretty cool.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So he can't use the touch screen, but in that Braille keyboard there is, scrolling buttons to go to the different options, and I'll read out to him what it is. And he does have like a regular keyboard for when he wants to type. He could type with his Braille keyboard, but that's like typing in Braille, which then translates it into the text on the iPhone.
Right.
Because a Braille keyboard, you have a button for each dot.
Oh, wow.
So you have to like push down the combinations of buttons for the combination of dots. And he just finds it easier to type on a regular keyboard. He just has, an Apple brand keyboard that, again, hooks up with Bluetooth to his...
Wow. So he can type on a QWERTY keyboard, no problem.
Yeah, no problem. Because it's all touch typing,
Yeah.
It's got the little dots on the F and J keys.
Yeah.
And he feels that, and he can type just fine.
Wow. And because of this, you are fluent in sign language.
Yeah, I'm honestly probably not as good as I should be, but definitely good enough to carry on a conversation and,
That's really interesting.
I don't think I'd really call myself fluent, but I could sign before I could speak.
Wow.
So what do you mean? What would be fluent then? Because you can carry a conversation with your dad and your uncle.
My sign language vocabulary is somewhat limited, so a lot of things I will have to fingerspell, which would be like spelling out the letters.
Oh, okay.
for the word in English.
Right.
Because
I've
because
learned
there's
the
a
letters.
a lot of words in sign language which I don't know.
Right.
But again, the ASL grammar is quite different from English grammar.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm very familiar with the ASL grammar and sentence structure and stuff, which is completely different from the way English is structured.
I had no idea. I imagined that sign language would just translate non-verbally. That's what I imagined. Because I know
There is
little.
exact English signing.
Yeah.
Which is, some of the signs are different, some of them are the same. But that one is basically a word-for-word code of English.
It probably would not be as efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's much less efficient because you have signs for things like ing, like ing suffixes, ed, because it's exact English signing.
The tenses,
So,
Okay.
A very simple sign language sentence in ASL would be "I go store" is basically what it is. That's
Caveman language.
in a
For
way,
simplicity, yeah.
Because ASL doesn't have words like the or am or ing suffixes.
Because you don't really need it.
Because you don't need it, yeah. So
To get around,
in ASL, you would sign essentially "I go store," but then in exact English, you go "I am," and there's a sign for am. Go ing, and there's a sign for ing. To the store, and there's like a sign for each of those things. Whereas with ASL, it's much more compact and
So if you know American Sign Language, you're good for North America, basically.
essentially, yeah.
Now, if you go somewhere else, then is it not as common?
There's different sign languages in different places. For example, there's British Sign Language, which is another big popular one. BSL rather than ASL.
Is ASL with accent? I'm just kidding.
The British Sign Language, I know some of the alphabet, and I think some of the signs are similar, but there's vocabulary. It's a different language. The alphabet is completely different. The BSL alphabet you use two hands for. The ASL alphabet is entirely one-handed. An interesting thing about the BSL alphabet, though, is for a deaf-blind person, rather than my dad puts his hands on top of mine as I sign, but for the BSL alphabet, one hand is stationary and the other one does things to that hand to make the letters.
Okay.
So you can do that to the deaf-blind person's hand and they just feel, what fingers you're touching or what the motion is to know what letters it is.
Okay.
I'm not too sure about the actual vocabulary and sign and sentence structure of BSL because it's not really something I'm familiar with, but I know the alphabet is entirely different.
Is there a reason why there is no international standard? But maybe it's the same reason why we don't have an international language.
Spoken language, yeah.
Spoken language standard.
It's the same thing as spoken languages. They developed separately in different areas,
But I am curious about the English speaking world. Why would British Sign Language and American Sign Language be so different?
The guy who made American Sign Language was a French person. So American Sign Language is actually more similar to French Sign Language than to British Sign Language.
That's interesting. That's a cool piece of trivia that you could use on Jeopardy and win the whole thing.
And
not many people know
I
that.
have relatives from Italy who will occasionally come over, and they know the British Sign Language alphabet. I don't know if there's an Italian Sign Language. If there is, I haven't heard of it. But they're not really very good at sign language, but they do know the alphabet of British Sign Language. And so they do that to my dad, and he can understand. I don't know the alphabet. I know some of the letters.
So your dad can understand British Sign Language?
Yeah, my dad is, I suppose you could say he's multilingual, because
Okay.
He knows English. He can
helpful.
read and write English. His English actually isn't that good, because a lot of the time he'll use ASL grammar.
Yeah.
Or sometimes he'll try to use English grammar and get it wrong, and so my dad speaks in air quotes English, ASL, BSL, probably some other types of sign language. Exact English is one that he knows.
Yeah, I was going to say, because what about when you're reading books in Braille? The author is obviously going to have all the articles and all of the suffixes. So a person that's deafblind would have to know that those exist in order to fully comprehend language, right?
And there's actually there might be three, but two main grades of Braille. One is letter for letter, what English is, and then there's one that's shortened. And,
like a shorthand.
Almost like a shorthand. Like, I believe there's one Braille character for the and things like that. Like,
wow.
And certain common words will be shortened to like 2 letters, because Braille does take up a lot of room.
Space, yeah.
The pages have to be thick for them to keep the dots properly. You can't have the text nearly as small, or else you're not going to be able to feel it.
Yeah.
My dad has a pocket dictionary in Braille, which takes up an entire bookshelf.
A pocket dictionary.
like one shelf of a bookshelf, not like the whole bookcase, but like.
Yeah.
I think it's one shelf and a little bit, but it says like Webster's Pocket Dictionary on it, or something. I don't know if it's Webster's or it's some sort of pocket dictionary.
So it's based on the pocket dictionary, but it's definitely not for your pocket.
It's like a Braille recreation of their English pocket dictionary.
So my wife, who's also Italian,
yes,
I don't want to call it suffers from, because I don't think you can suffer from this particular condition.
She talks with her hands?
No. Well, yeah, that too. Well, especially when she's mad. I get this one a lot. You can't see that because you're listening.
It's a good thing.
Yeah. There is a condition, a psychological condition called non-phonating fluency. And what it is, and it's because my wife grew up with her parents and all 4 grandparents speaking Italian, she can hear Italian and completely fluently understand it, but cannot speak it back. And it comes from a situation of use it and lose it, but it happens a lot in adolescence, where when they don't use it, they lose the confidence because they don't have the confidence.
That's what it is, the confidence.
It's the confidence. They don't speak, and therefore they can't speak. It's not like, you could put a gun to my wife's head and say, speak Italian, and she won't be able to. Like, she can't speak, but she can perfectly understand it. Is it the same with sign language? Like you said, that your fluency isn't very good, and that you sometimes have to hand spell the letters or letter spell. But if your dad is signing to you, how good is your comprehension?
I do understand a lot better than I speak,
yes.
so to speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the same sort of thing. Like, I can understand quite well, but there still are some vocabulary words, like, I don't know what that means. I'll have to ask people, like, to spell it out for me if I don't understand. But yeah, my comprehension is better than my speaking ability, if you will.
That's interesting. It's interesting that it works for sign language as well.
Yeah. And although
it's a language.
It's a language.
Although I have been exposed to Italian a little bit throughout my childhood, because my nonna and nono came from Italy. My uncle was actually born in Italy, but my dad was born in Canada, so they moved in the period between their births. Which is funny because their names reflect it very well. My uncle's name is Pier Giorgio, and my dad's name is Eddie. No, not Edward, not Eduardo.
Eddie.
It's not short for anything. That's like his name on his birth certificate is Eddie. But anyways, I was saying, I've been exposed to Italian a little bit throughout my childhood, but I never really learned to speak that, because I guess that probably comes from my dad being deaf too. He doesn't speak Italian. I didn't hear that from him. Right. And my nonna and nono mostly would just speak English because everyone else did.
So because they had the ability to speak and hear and see, they must have had to have learned sign language when they had children that couldn't hear from birth, and then would eventually lose their eyesight. So they must have learned ASL as well.
Yeah, my nono passed away quite some time ago, so I don't really have much to say about his sign language ability, but my nona is not very good at ASL, honestly. But my dad and my uncle can still understand her just fine. Somehow. I guess it's the family connection, or, growing up with her signing to them all this time. But my dad and my uncle did go to school for deaf children to learn ASL. They learned Braille in school and all that.
Did they always live in British Columbia?
Yes.
Well, your uncle was born in Italy.
But,
excuse me, but moved when he was quite young still.
Because the BC Provincial School for the Deaf is Burnaby South. Secondary.
Yeah, and that's very close to where my dad lives right now.
So I imagine that he probably went to Burnaby South.
I'm not 100% sure. I know he went... Oh, actually, he wasn't in Burnaby the entire time. I mean, in BC the entire time. Because he did go to Ontario for some time to go to school there.
Okay.
But I believe he did probably go to Burnaby South at some point. Again, I'm not exactly sure on that. But
Another question, completely away from the... Well, I guess not completely away from the deafblind, but when your dad and uncle competed at the Paralympics, they compete for Canada or Italy?
For Canada.
Okay.
Which Olympics were there?
You can find it on Wikipedia. I don't know off the top of my head, though. Sometime in the
Eddie
80s,
Morton.
I think. Yeah. So there's Eddie Morton and there's Pierre Morton, but yeah, Turpin's got it up on Wikipedia right now.
Won gold in wrestling in 84, and
84.
bronze in judo in 88.
88 was Calgary, but that's Winter Olympics.
Yeah, so that's 88, 84, and 80. 80 for the race walk. 5 kilometer walk.
Hold on. The first in 80, it was in Arnhem, Netherlands. In 84, what does it say? 84 Summer Paralympics were held in New York, USA. And in 88, they were held in Seoul, South Korea.
Yeah, so he did travel for a lot of different things. That was before I was born, though. He's since retired. Because that was all in the 80s. I was born in 2000, so...
So he didn't wrestle you?
Well, he did, and he still can kick my ass. Pardon the language, but... yeah, he's been retired for quite some time now. Or retired from wrestling and judo and things like that, at least. He still works. He works for Quest Food Exchange, which is in, I don't remember, New West or something like that.
What does he do?
I'm not sure of his title. But what Quest Food Exchange is it's like a cross between a food bank and a grocery store, but it's fully accessible for people with disabilities. So... they have scanners that you can scan the item and it'll read out loud to you what it is. Okay. They've got a tactile map where you can feel what the different departments are with Braille saying, like produce over here, dairy over here, and you can feel where the different hallways are and navigate that way. They have Braille signage on everything.
So it's a whole grocery store with...
Yeah, it's sort of like a grocery store, sort of like a food bank. It's like a cheaper...
In Burnaby.
It's in New West, I think. It might be Vancouver.
They actually have several locations. I'm on their website. They're about to open up their 5th one on the North Shore. And it says that they do accept donations, but it looks like their picture. It looks like a grocery store.
Yeah, you go in there and you pick out what you want. You go to the till.
Oh, wow.
But I think it's just like a more affordable type thing. And it's completely accessible to... deaf people, blind people, deaf-blind people, all that sort of stuff.
That's interesting.
It's a nice organization. I'm not sure what my uncle does, but that's what my dad does. He works more as a office-type job rather than like a cashier or something like that, because people do come through that, he wouldn't be able to communicate with if they don't know sign language and things like that. So he works more of an office type role.
I remember when you were in grade 9, and we went to Michael Smith Labs at UBC.
Yes.
For that tour, and I remember you mentioning and you saying that your dad belongs to a community. It's a different culture.
Yes, there is.
Right?
There is
Can you talk about
deaf culture? Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
So a lot of people will distinguish between the word deaf with a lowercase d and deaf with a capital D.
Really?
Deaf with a capital D means that you are culturally deaf and you're a part of that community, because it is a community in a way. And there is a culture around deaf people. There's deaf events. There's all sorts of different things that you can go to.
There's grocery stores.
There's grocery stores and stuff.
There's restaurants.
Yeah, and there's quite a culture around that. And with that laboratory that we went to, there was this this video of someone who wanted to find out if their child would be deaf or not deaf from the genetic research. And then there was the question of, should I prevent my child from being deaf or let it be, or should I make my child deaf?
Right.
Because there's a culture around that. And a deaf parent with a hearing child might not be able to connect on the same way as a deaf child and a deaf parent, or a hearing parent and a hearing child. And so I had a nice heated debate. Oh, I love debating.
I remember that.
I love playing devil's advocate and stuff like that. I forget who it was. I think
I can't
it was
remember either.
someone's father. So one of the students' fathers, and I had a nice discussion. It was pretty fun about that, cultural deafness and the fact that there is like a shared experience behind it, and there can be deaf, lowercase deaf people who are not deaf, up the capital D, because they are considered different things.
Well, you see the same with gender, right? Like there are the LGBTQ2 community, but in that community, yes, it's people that have those sexual preferences, but just because you have that sexual preference doesn't necessarily mean that you engage in everything that community has to offer, right? Like, you could potentially be, and there are a few people that I've spoken to in my life that feel this way. There are a few people that I know that are homosexual that don't want to go to the Pride Parade. I just don't really want to go down and see that parade. I don't feel like I have to. I feel like I can just have my same-sex relationship and live life. But there are those who like engaging with the community, right?
Yeah.
And having that in common with people makes them feel like they belong somewhere, right? You see with immigration patterns, when people immigrate from a country, when you look at the immigration patterns in North America throughout the 20th century, you tend to see that birds of a feather flock together, for lack of a better term. That, this is where all the Italians settled, and this is where the Japanese settled, and this is where the Russians settled, and this is where the Chinese settled after the head tax, etc., etc. But then again, you also see people who defy those norms, right? Like, growing up at mid-century, my parents went to high school, Churchill Secondary School, where Mr. Kung's wife is a teacher, and my parents said that there was one student among their student body that had come from an Asian country. One. And if you looked at the demographic today, it's very different, right?
It's flipped.
Totally. Yeah, you'd be hard pressed to find a white person at Churchill. But the thing is that for that one student, it must have been very, I don't want to say strange for them, but obviously there was a reason why they were there, and they weren't living in a community of like people, right? So, and I'm not saying that it's good or bad either way. I'm just saying that you do see that there are communities of people that are together for togetherness reasons, and then there are people who don't subscribe to that. And
well, you tend to flock towards cultures or behaviors that you're familiar with,
of course,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And as for that Italian thing, they do have like Italian events and stuff, much like the deaf things, and you can have Italian heritage without going to that, without being involved in that. They shut down Commercial Drive for a day. A few times a year, I go to this Trentino meetup, which is like all the people from my specific region of Italy go into like the basement of a church, and we have dinner, and we
it's the same with my wife's family, Calabrese, which is all Southern Italians, right? So my wife goes to Miss Calabria pageant every year,
Oh, there's a pageant?
Oh, there's a pageant.
Nice.
My wife's cousin won it this year. But yeah, it's very interesting. Like, my wife, it's funny, her dad was born in Italy, her mom was born here, but all grandparents are Italian. But I would call my wife Italian lowercase I, because she's very, second and third generation on her mom and dad's side. But it's funny and it will be different this year. It'll be a very different experience. But my wife becomes very Italian during World Cup. But this year, Italy's not in the World Cup. So I wonder what's going to happen there. I've already told her, I said, well, now that Italy's not in, you can just cheer for Germany with me. And she threatened to kick me out of the apartment.
Don't you dare.
Don't you dare. Well, you know I'm going to stab myself in my leg with my pen for not remembering it right now. But the name of the helmet that the German soldiers wore in the First World War with the spike that came out of it. There was
it has pickle in it, right?
Yeah, that's it.
It's like Pickelhaube or something.
Yeah. Anyways, I have one. Not a real one. It's a replica, and it's plastic, and I bought it at a costume store. But when Germany played Italy in the previous World Cup, I wore that to her parents' house.
Oh, that's awful.
And was not treated very well. And Germany won. And then I was really not treated well. But Italy's not even in it this year. So let's cheer for Germany, wife. And she's like, no. But Italy's not in it. Anyways, sidebar.
So you're going into acting.
Yes.
This is your future.
That's the plan, yeah.
And where do you think you could take it from there? Like, what would you see yourself doing in, let's say, 10 years?
Well, like I said before, I plan on going into teaching.
Like public school teaching or like private acting teaching?
No, I was thinking public school.
Nice.
I'm not great with like super young kids.
I have inspired him. He's like,
I know,
just like Turpin.
I know this sounds a lot like Mr. Turpin, but like I feel like I might want to do it at like the secondary level.
Yeah.
Because that just seems like a good place to go with it, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm sure Mr. Turpin agrees that it's a good place to go with it.
Love my job.
Yeah, so that's sort of what I'm planning to do. But I also plan to stay, active in actually doing performances and productions and stuff, much like Mr. Turpin is. He still does shows with a line and all sorts of stuff. So I would like to stay active in actually performing as well.
You got a clone.
I love it.
Look at what you've done to me.
Look what I've done.
You've made yourself.
And it only took 3 years. I gave myself 5 to have my first clone. No, I'm kidding. I never did. I never thought that. But I am honored and thrilled. Very proud of young Trevor. Young Trevor. He's done very good work on our stages.
Are you doing any work outside of school right now?
I just finished a out-of-school production, actually. We had our last performance just last Saturday. Today is Wednesday, so that was like, just a few days ago. And it was a student-written, student-directed piece. It was called Nightmares, written and directed by a 13-year-old.
Wow.
One of my favorite things to say is that my director is younger than my car. Because my car is a 2002, and my director is a 2004. So that was quite interesting. But yeah, she wrote and directed a piece, and we put it on at a little one-act festival in Surrey. It was like there were 3 different one-act plays, and ours was one of the 3. Everyone else in that festival was like a, college student or above. And then there was, we had a group of high school students, ages 13 to 18.
Good for you.
But that was an interesting experience. I had a nice little stage there. It was quite a small venue, I think.
What was the venue called?
It's RCTC, Royal Canadian Theatre Company.
I know Royal Canadian Theatre Company. Ellie King.
Yeah.
God, I go way back with Ellie.
I didn't know you know Ellie. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and I worked with her husband, Jeff.
Yeah, he was there too.
Oh,
yeah.
Jeff King. Jeff King managed the Evergreen Cultural Center when I worked there as a volunteer coordinator for a short amount of time.
Oh, nice. But Jeff was doing more of the technical side of things, and then Ellie was more coordinating the actors and the directors and stuff.
Still doing the same thing.
Small world.
Yeah, I didn't know you know her. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
But what was the venue, though? Because they have a company, RCTC.
I can give you the address of it if you want. It was
let's look up Royal name.
It was 10660 City Parkway. That was our venue.
This is hilarious. What a small world.
Yeah, and it's just a tiny venue. It's we set out like 25 seats or 26 or something like that. And then we only had 2 performances, one on one Saturday and then one the week after. And on the second one, we had way more people come than we expected, so we had to put out more chairs. And we probably had only, like 35, 40 people there.
Wow.
But it was quite full because it's a pretty small venue. But yeah, there was like a nice lighting setup, and it was pretty good.
That's
Trevor,
really cool.
how did you feel, like, now that you're at the end of the high school game, what will you take away from high school? And how are your 5 years here?
What do you mean?
Now that you're graduating.
What do you mean?
Like, what am I going to take? Well, there's been like lots of experiences that I've had throughout my high school career, and a lot of the acting stuff is really affecting my future, as you know. I don't.
Are you going to miss it at all?
Well, okay. In a way, I'll miss it. I'll miss some of the people here, some of the experience I'm having, but at the same time, I kind of can't wait to get out of here.
You're excited to get out.
Well, yeah, excited. Yeah, that's a better way to put it. Yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to like the after high school life, and
That's good.
probably some more freedoms, and I feel like I'm going to enjoy university. So
Looks like you will. Yeah.
I hope so.
Going to my old stomping grounds up in Capilano.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of the forest. You're going to feel like you're in the Shire. It's so lovely. I love that.
It's
campus.
nice.
It's a really nice school.
Yeah.
It is nice there.
Yeah.
And that theater that I was just
Blue
there.
Shore Financial Group Theater.
Is that pretty new? It looked really new.
I think it was built in 97, 98.
Oh, really?
That's pretty new, yeah.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's a nice theater, yeah.
Yeah, my son just performed there for a
Oh,
concert
really?
for the Vancouver Youth Symphony.
Nice. That's really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, when I did my interview for the technical theater program there, and I got like a tour of up in the catwalks and the backstage and all that sort of stuff. It's a really nice space.
Well, it's nice that it's so steep that, we
Yeah.
were sitting pretty high up there and felt
And you
really
can
close.
still see
Yeah.
everything no matter where you are. Yeah.
It's nice that way.
Yeah, it's a nice space.
So, any last words?
Well, are you
Any
about to kill
encouraging?
me, or like,
No. Well, that's how we end our podcasts.
Oh, good.
Any words for any aspiring actors that are sitting there listening to this, who's in grade 8, who's not sure if they want to get into theater or not, but you've piqued their interest?
Honestly, just go for it. Like, you'll never know if it's right for you unless you try it out. And if you don't try it out, you'll never know. So, like, that sort of goes with everything beyond just acting. I'm one of those types of people who's kind of been in a little bit of everything. I've done, music, acting, science, math, visual arts, I've been all over the place. And I think that's just good advice for anyone, is just go and do stuff, try it out. If you don't like it, you don't have to stick with it. But if you don't try it, you'll never know if it's the thing you were meant to do, or, you'll never know if that's your passion unless you give it a shot. So for acting, for any aspiring actors, try it out, audition for something. It's nerve-wracking. It's really scary. I hate auditions. I hate preparing for auditions, but just go out and do it and see if it works for you. The thing with me is after the show is when I really feel like that reward for it. And try a show out. You do a show. See if that feeling is addictive enough to keep going.
And it can be.
And it can be. That on stage with the audience and after the show, the high from that. Well, figurative high, but...
Oh, yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, that can be really addicting, and that's what I'm chasing. I have a love for performing. Beyond just acting, my music, I love performing as well. And that gives me that high that I'm chasing, and it's something I love and something I'm passionate about. And you'll never know if it's the same for you unless you try it out. So I'd suggest to anyone, just if you think it might be pretty cool, give it a shot. It might be really cool. You know,
That's
it doesn't
awesome
hurt
advice.
to try things. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today, Trevor.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Great advice. Thank you.